Listen, if we're going out with a bang, all right? You guys are gonna hate me for this one. Let's go. Shazam! Fury of the Gods is a sequel to the original Shazam movie that released back in 2019. This new story is set 4 years later as we follow the main protagonist, Billy Batson, as an older teenager about to graduate high school. He's still living in the foster home with his 5 brothers and sisters who all have superpowers thanks to Billy. As long as they scream out the word Shazam, then they'll transform into their adult bodies with their supernatural abilities such as flight, speed, and strength. These new features and abilities give each kid a new alter ego where they could be someone else, especially more confident for obvious reasons. At times, his confidence may feel unstoppable until they come across 3 powerful goddesses who claim to be the daughters of Atlas. Conflict between the sisters arises as one wishes to rebuild their world specifically on Earth, causing destruction, and mythical creatures causing chaos. Billy and his siblings now have to protect and fight for Earth, even if the magical odds may be against them. So that's pretty much the plot with these Shazam superheroes fighting against these 3 magical goddesses. The main character, played by Zachary Levi, is doing his best to keep his family together, especially his siblings, since now that they're more experienced with their superhero abilities, they're all kind of off doing their own thing. He's also having an internal battle with himself and his confidence with his abilities and purpose, such as if he's even deserving to be in this position of power. I personally haven't watched the original movie in a while, but from what I can recall, it was definitely a vibe. It was a good movie. The villain was also good, and the charm was there throughout the entire movie. I would say for this movie, the sequel, that the villains are probably not as intimidating as that first villain from the original movie, but the charm was still there with the comedy definitely kicked up a few notches. I think another difference between the 2 movies is that the original movie is an origin story, so that actually takes time to build up the characters and the plot line and his backstory. Whereas with this movie, everything is already established and we're already familiar with the characters. In this sequel, we have way more screen time with the older adult characters, way more than actually watching the child actors on screen. And me personally, I think I actually enjoyed this a lot more. Even looking back on the first movie, towards the end, the kids become the superheroes. And I think that was the coolest part, in my opinion. So to watch this second movie, where most of the movie, the entirety of the movie, you actually see those versions of them as the superheroes, which I found fun. And at least definitely for the main character, Billy, played by Zachary Levi, because Zachary Levi, the adult version, he's in this movie about 90% of the time. And for the character that he plays, his comedy can be a hit or miss. For me, it's definitely a hit. I found him very enjoyable and very funny throughout the entire movie, with this one and in the first one. But now in this one, they did go really hard on all the jokes. I mean, even till they make a joke about a joke. Like, one joke was extremely corny, where it was so obvious that they made a joke about it. Stuff like that is where even I'm like, really? Like, we don't even have to include all that. And on a serious note, I could see how online people are confused between the different personalities portrayed on screen, from younger Billy to older Billy. But when you think about it, younger Billy as a teenager, he's been through so much stuff, especially being in the foster home. If you're not familiar, the younger version of Billy is definitely more serious and reserved. He doesn't crack that many jokes. And he's a teenager who's been through so much. Hence, like I said, he's in a foster home and he's still getting adjusted to things. But when he turns into this adult superhero version, played by Zachary Levi, he's acting like a damn fool 24/7. You can't really tell the difference. He's acting like a freaking kid, a big kid. And it makes sense, because if a kid's been through like a traumatic experience, maybe this is who that kid really is. But as a teenager, he's hiding it, whereas the adult version, he could just let loose, have fun, be a kid, and have no worries because he's his best self. And like I said, when he's back to being a kid, he's back in his reality where he's one of the older siblings, so he does have to take on more responsibility and be very serious and be there for his siblings. And not to turn this into a therapy session, right? Let's just keep it moving. But other than that, I enjoyed the comedy in this movie throughout. I feel like every character had their moment to shine, especially this little girl. She kept talking about these Skittles, and there was one part in the movie where I just bursted out laughing because I was not expecting it. I mean, you have this little cute girl, and out of nowhere, she's about to curse in the heat of the moment. And it's like, you don't really see it coming, and I do appreciate them putting this type of adult humor into the movie. I just found that so fun. Writing like that is definitely a risk, especially in the heat of the moment, but the timing was perfect nonetheless. And as I mentioned before, I could totally get it. This comedy is not for you, but if you watch this movie, you can't deny for the actors, they were all in it 100% for better or worse. Another actor I want to give another shout out to is Jack Dylan Grazer, because not only did it bring the comedy throughout the whole entire movie, this kid also brought this intense emotional drama that was required for some of these scenes. I don't really watch scary movies, right? But I did watch the 2 It movies. And this kid was in those movies. He was a freaking beast. So just look out for him in the future, I'm telling you guys. He was probably my favorite besides Zachary Levi. But other than that, I did enjoy the cast overall. I mean, just look at this picture and tell me that they couldn't have done a better job at casting the young and older versions for these characters. Now, the CGI was not as bad as compared to other movies, and I expected the mythical creatures in this film to not be groundbreaking, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I just overall thought they were cool. And the dragon over the movie was definitely over the top, but it is a superhero movie, so Why not? I'm okay with it. I'm not expecting like Game of Thrones levels visual effects. But to be honest, I know a critic shouldn't really have low expectations or high expectations. They should just go in pretty neutral. But going into this movie, I had very low expectations, so I was just kind of blown away. Now, for me in the theater I was in, this movie was just a constant build-up for me. I don't know if you've ever watched a movie like that where it just kind of gets better and better throughout. And the theater and myself, we just kept laughing throughout the entire movie. I did expect the filmmakers to deliver on the action sequences. However, I did not expect the writing to be so hilarious for each of these characters. And as I previously mentioned, it almost feels like every character has their brief moment to shine in this movie. Some of the music choices were good, and the pacing overall had the movie going in the right direction. And at the end of the movie, there was a huge cameo where I could see DC fans may be torn. Because on one hand, if many of you don't know, they're actually restarting the whole DC universe. So as you're watching this film, if you know the remaining films that are coming out, they're pretty much finished and they're going to scrap everything and start over with new actors, new storylines. So though a superhero shows up in this movie as a cameo from another movie that they're in, it's kind of strange but still exciting. Because in the back of your mind, you're happy to see this character, this actor, but you're also knowing that it's probably not going to lead to anything, as in like future movie spin-offs. However, if you're like me and you're already aware of this and you already know and you take it for what it is and you just don't care, then it is what it is. Just imagine what it could be. To me, it just felt kind of bittersweet for the DC to tie this character with this movie and then imagine like what could come from it. It just made it feel like Marvel in the old days, how they did such a great job at those end credit scenes to get you super excited for the upcoming movies that are going to come out. Now with all this superhero movie saturation, everything is kind of a blur for me personally, and it's just not as special as it once was. So it just made me appreciate this film with the cast and crew and how much work they put into it. Specifically to try and make it special, because you never know. This could be our last Shazam movie with this cast. So yeah, I did have low expectations going into this, but I could have also been a little overexcited once I got this comic book right before the movie. I knew they were giving this out. I knew this was free if you went on that day. So this is if you saw it in Dolby theaters at AMC. And as you can see, I mean, it's a legit comic book, you know, so stuff like this is super cool to me. It could be I'm a little biased with this movie, but it is what it is. I love collecting stuff like this. And I don't care, because despite all the hate people are giving this movie and their stinking bullshit, if you love action comedy, then this is the movie for you. I already knew by the middle of this movie that it would probably be a vibe since it just felt good. It felt right watching the cast and story, but towards the end with the surprise cameo, it's just a cherry on top, even if it leads to nowhere in future movies. It still makes you appreciate the love and humor they put into this film about family.
It's all about
Skittles. Taste the rainbow.
I know. Sometimes it doesn't have to make sense to make you feel hype, all right? So I thought this was a great movie. I had a great time. If you shitheads think otherwise, let it be known in the comments. Let it be known.
Come on, Cleveland. Come on. Come over here.
And that's right. Shame on you, right? Because when you think about it, with the DC universe, we only have 2 movies left. For this cinematic universe, from what I know, is The Flash and Aquaman 2. However, they did just release a new trailer for this new superhero, Blue Beetle. However, that might be in the next universe. I have no idea if they're going to tie it with this one. So I'm counting it as 2 DC movies left for this universe that we know of. And I just hope for the DC universe that they finish strong, like in my opinion, that they did for this movie. But let me know down in the comments how you feel about the DC universe starting over with new storylines, new actors. And let me know how you also felt about this movie if you watched already. And if you haven't watched, I recommend checking it out if you love action comedy movies. And if you enjoyed this video, consider clicking that like button and subscribing if you're new to the channel. This way you can stay updated with new movie reviews uploaded weekly. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all on the next one. Peace.